welcome to Think Before You Share, where we discuss today's issues through the lens of ethics. I'm Bea. I'll be your host for today's episode. So, let me ask you something. Have you ever seen a political post online that immediately made you react? Maybe you liked it, commented on it, or even shared it without thinking twice. A few hours later, you found out it wasn't even true. So, this happens more often than we think. Today, we're going to talk about political misinformation in the Philippines, why it spreads so easily, why it's an ethical issue, and what we can do about it. Joining me today are my group mates. We have Elia, our issue researcher, Eunice and Hilary, our ethical analyst, and Metch, our technical personnel. Even though we have different roles, we'll all be sharing our thoughts throughout today's discussion. So let's get started. Elia, to help us understand the issue, can you first explain what is political misinformation is?
Sure, Bea. So, ano nga ba yung political misinformation? Basically, it's false or misleading information about politics. Minsan, ginagawa talaga siya intentionally para ma-influence yung opinions ng mga tao, while other times, people share it without realizing na fake pala yung information. So, dito sa Pilipinas, ang dami sa atin yung kumukuha ng news from social media like Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, or even X. Since mabilis yung pag-spread ng information online, mabilis din kumalat ng fake news, edited videos, manipulated photos, and misleading posts. Mas napapansin natin to during election season because halos lahat ng nasa feed natin political content. The problem is, not everything we see online is true. Kaya it's really important to verify first before believing or sharing anything.
Actually, what you said was true. During elections, our social media feeds become full of political content, and it can be difficult to tell what's factual and what's misleading. Mitch, since you're handling the technical side of our podcast, I'm curious about your perspective. Why do you think misinformation spreads so quickly online?
I think one major reason is how social media works. Most platforms use algorithms that recommend content based on what people interact with the most. If a post gets many likes, comments, or shares, even if it's false, it can quickly appear on thousands of other people's feeds. Sometimes, misleading posts spread faster than verified news because they're designed to be emotional, surprising, or controversial. Technology itself isn't the problem. The problem is when people share information without taking time to verify whether it's true.
Oh, that's really an interesting point. So, it's not only about technology itself, but also about how people choose to use it. Elia, aside from voters, who else is affected by political misinformation?
Actually, hindi lang voters yung naapektuhan eh. Students, teachers, journalists, families, and even the entire communities can be affected by misinformation. Kapag maraming naniniwala sa false information, people can lose trust sa credible news sources and even sa government institutions. At the end of the day, misinformation doesn't just affect one person. It can influence public opinion, create misunderstandings, and even affect important decisions that impact our country.
With what you have discussed, dun mas napapakita natin how the issue is really serious. Many people think fake news is just another post, but its effects its effects can influence an entire community. With that, this brings us to the next question. Aside from being false, what actually makes political misinformation an ethical issue? Eunice, what do you think about it?
Okay, that's a very, very good question So, yung political misinformation, nagiging ethical issue siya kasi nakaka-affect siya within the honesty, fairness, and then yung respect sa other people. So, every citizen naman, meron silang rights, 'di ba, to receive truthful information, especially kapag gumagawa ng mga important na decisions tulad ng pagboto, ganon, or pag-form ng mga opinions about sa public issues. So, kapag yung misinformation nag-spread siya, yung mga tao, magiging deprived sila within the opportunity to make informed choices. Kasi, gumagawa sila ng mga decisions based on false information or misleading information. So, another ethical concern is accountability. Kasi, yung ibang tao, sinasabi nila, I was just sharing what I saw online, ganun. Paano kung hindi pala credible yung source na pinagkuhanan niya nun, 'di ba? So, every time na magpo-post tayo or magko-comment or mag-share, gumagawa tayo ng mga choices na pwedeng maka-influence sa ibang tao. Minsan na-realize natin, minsan hindi. Tapos, di rin natin napapansin na nagiging part na tayo ng pagkalat ng mga information.
With that, kasi sometimes na-underestimate natin kung gaano kalaki yung impact ng isang click lang natin with all the things we see online. So, Hillary, before we move into the ethical theories, what's your personal takeaway from everything we've discussed so far?
For me, discussion shows that misinformation isn't just about technology or politics, it's about people. Every person deserves the chance to know the truth. When false information spreads, trust is damaged, not only between citizens but also between people and institutions. That's why ethics is so important in conversations like this. It's not only about asking whether something is legal, it's something about asking whether it's right.
Exactly, because that's why we really need to be careful with what we consume online. Now that we've understood why political misinformation is an ethical concern, let's look at it through different ethical perspectives and see what they can teach us. Hillary, let's start with virtue ethics. How does it help us understand this issue?
Thanks, Bea. Virtue ethics focuses on a person's character instead of asking, what should I do? It asks, what kind of person should I become? In this issue, a person with good character values honesty, integrity, and responsibility. Before sharing a political post, they would first ask themselves if the information is true and whether sharing it would help or harm others. For example, if I come across a post with a shocking headline, I shouldn't immediately believe or repost it. Instead, I should verify it by checking reliable news resources. That simple action already reflects honesty and respect for other people. So, virtue ethics teaches us that being a responsible digital citizen starts with building good habits and making ethical choices every day.
I really like that perspective kasi it reminds us that ethics begins with ourselves. It's easy to point fingers at people who create fake news, but sometimes we should also examine kung ano yung nagiging actions natin or kung paano tayo dapat maging careful sa mga nakikita natin online. So, Eunice, what does deontology say about this issue?
Okay, so yung deontology, nag-focus siya within our duties and then yung mga moral responsibilities natin. So, according sa theory na to, every person meron silang duty to tell the truth and i-respect yung rights ng others. So, kapag may nag-share ng political misinformation without even checking kung tama ba yun, nag-feel na sila to fulfill yung responsibility natin kasi may mga unintentional mislead na to other people. So, yung tayong mga citizens ng country natin, meron tayong right to receive a very truthful information, especially kapag gumagawa tayo ng mga decisions na pwedeng maka-affect sa country natin. So, yung misinformation, pine-prevent niya yung mga tao na gumawa ng mga informed decisions and yung rights nila and then yung mga rights nila is affected rin siya as well. So, yun yung reason from a deontological perspective, telling the truth isn't simply just a good habit, it's our moral obligation rin.
That's a really important reminder. Kasi sometimes people say na, I didn't create the post, I only shared it. But based on what you've explained, we still have responsibilities even when we're only passing information to others. Kasi kahit na hindi tayo yung nag-create ng post na yun, or kahit na hindi sa atin nanggaling mismo yung post, when we share the post of others that is misleading or has misinformation, we also can mislead others as well, hindi lang yung sarili natin.
Of course, I think change begins with each of us. Before sharing political content, we should pause, verify the information, and check whether it comes from reliable and credible sources. We should also avoid reacting based on headlines because they can sometimes be misleading or taken out of context. Developing critical thinking skills can help us become more responsible social media users.
So, for me, ang biggest takeaway dito is that misinformation doesn't spread because of technology alone. It spreads when people stop questioning what they see online. As citizens, we shouldn't believe everything that appears on our feeds. We should always fact check, think critically, and verify informations before sharing it. Kasi in the end, protecting the truth isn't just the job of journalists, fact-checkers, or the government. Responsibility din nating lahat yon as users of social media.
Okay, so yung deontology, nag-focus siya within our duties and then yung mga moral responsibilities natin. So according sa theory na to, every person meron silang duty to tell the truth and i-respect yung rights ng others. So kapag may nag-share ng political misinformation without even checking kung tama ba yun, nag-feel na sila to fulfill yung responsibility natin kasi may mga unintentional mislead na to other people. So, yung tayong mga citizens ng country natin, meron tayong right to receive a very truthful information, especially kapag gumagawa tayo ng mga decisions na pwedeng maka-affect sa country natin. So, yung misinformation, pine-prevent niya yung mga tao na gumawa ng mga informed decisions and yung rights nila and then yung mga rights nila is affected rin siya as well. So, yun yung reason from a deontological perspective, telling the truth isn't simply just a good habit, it's our moral obligation rin.
So, Mitch, let's hear your thoughts. Since you're our technical personnel, you've probably seen how quickly information spreads online. How this consequentialism explains this issue.
Socialism looks at the consequences of our actions. It asks whether our actions produce more good than harm. When misinformation spreads, the consequences can be very serious. It can damage people's reputations, create misunderstandings, divide communities, and weaken public trust in institutions. Because false information spreads so quickly through social media, one misleading post can influence thousands or even millions of people before it's corrected. From this perspective, spreading misinformation is ethically wrong because its negative consequences affects not only individuals but society as a whole. Technology makes information travel faster, but it's still people who decide whether to share responsibly.
I think that's one of the biggest lessons from the day's discussion. Na technology itself isn't the enemy. It's how we choose to use it that makes the difference. Now that we've talked about the ethical side of the issue, let's move on to something even more important. What can what can we actually do to help reduce political misinformation? Hillary, would you like to start?
Of course, I think change begins with each of us. Before sharing political content, we should pause, verify the information, and check whether it comes from reliable and credible sources. We should also avoid reacting based on headlines because they can sometimes be misleading or taken out of context. Developing critical thinking skills can help us become more responsible social media users.
So, with what Hillary said na yung mga actions na yun, it may seem simple, but if more people practice them, they make they could make a huge difference. How about you, Eunice? What role can schools play in solving the issue?
So, yung mga schools kasi, meron silang very important na role. So, yung mga schools, they can strengthen media and information literacy by teaching students on how to evaluate sources, diba? And na pwede rin silang makahelp within kung paano ba mag-identify ng misinformation and mag-think critically bago paniwalaan yung content sa online. So, yung education, hindi lang siya basta nakaka-help within sa students kasi within maging academically successful yung students, nakaka-help rin siya para mas maging responsible and ethical citizen yung bata, right?
That's true. So, Mitch, what about technology and social media platforms themselves?
Companies can improve their fact-checking systems, make it easier to report misleading posts, and continue working with independent fact-checkers. Government agencies can also conduct public awareness campaigns that encourage people to verify information before sharing it. However, even with these efforts, the biggest responsibility still belongs to us as users. No amount of technology can replace ethical decision making.
I agree with that, Mitch, na technology can support us, but it can never replace personal responsibility. Before we end, Aliyah, after everything we've discussed today, what message would you like our listeners to remember?
So, for me, ang biggest takeaway dito is that misinformation doesn't spread because of technology alone. It spreads when people stop questioning what they see online. As citizens, we shouldn't believe everything that appears on our feeds. We should always fact check, think critically, and verify informations before sharing it. Kasi in the end, protecting the truth isn't just the job of journalists, fact-checkers, or the government. Responsibility din nating lahat yon as users of social media.
As we conclude today's episode, we hope our discussion has shown that political misinformation is more than just fake news. It's an ethical issue because it challenges honesty, responsibility, fairness, and respect for others. Whether we look at it through virtue ethics, deontology, or consequentialism, one message remains the same, that every action we take online has consequences. So, bago tayo mag-click, bago tayo mag-click ng share, let's take a moment to ask ourselves, totoo ba to? Is this verified? Will sharing this help others? Or could it cause harm? Kasi, small actions can make a big difference. By choosing truth over misinformation, we can help create a more informed, responsible, and ethical society. Thank you for listening to Think Before You Share, the ethics of political misinformation in the Philippines. I'm Bea, together with Aliyah, Eunice, Hillary, and Mitch.
I'm going dumb.